I'm Pule Mulibati back again this week with your weekly dose of positive and uplifting news. This is Stories Untold. Welcome to the show. They say that speak up and speak clearly. We want to hear what you have to say because your voice matters. Tammy Boy is an agent of change who teaches young people the importance of using their voice. Tammy is passionate about public speaking and debating, and he's using this platform to build young people's confidence and also shape their self-image. Let's have a look.
My name is Tammy Boy. I am this co-founder of Tsimung. And what we do is that we teach 21st century competencies to young people through debating. So we use debating as a wonderful tool to embed really important 21st century competencies, such as critical thinking, your ability to discern between right and wrong, your ability to make a judgment by using information and principles that you might have in your own heart, communication, so your ability to speak to people, public speaking and the like, collaboration, working in teams, creative problem solving, and citizenship and character. So I grew up in the Val, right? I grew up between two communities. I grew up between a suburban community in Vereeniging, and I grew up between a township, dusty township community in Tsimung, right? So I was born to young parents, so I was raised by my grandparents. So every weekend I'm in Tsimung, every week Giacon Park, right? So I'm seeing paved streets, I'm seeing dusty gravel streets. In this area, they're playing PlayStation and cricket. In this area, they're playing soccer and all sorts of other things, right? So that really, growing up in that environment for all those years and really nestling between the two places, code switching, going to a former Model C school and then going to interact with your friends who don't speak English the same way that you do, that builds empathy. That builds a deep, deep sense of empathy. And I really, truly think that is citizenship, to try to bridge the gap and make the gap smaller and make the opportunities that I had in Akon Park Primary School available to those at Khutlataro Secondary School, Tsimung, right? And so I've been passionate about that from a very young age. And so debating was a very easy vehicle for me to translate that passion into real, impactful work. So I've been a debater basically my whole school career. And so one of the things that I discovered is that debating, gave me so many personal benefits and personal skills and competencies. So critical thinking, communication, all those really wonderful things. And by the time I was in university at WITS, I was part of the WITS debating union. And one of the big things that we had to do was actually go into communities and facilitate debates, adjudicate debates, coach schools, etc. But one thing that my friend and I, Bongani Masilela, noticed was that, and this is actually a very prevalent problem, we weren't even the first people to notice this, is that children from township schools, underserved communities, wouldn't have access to the sport debating, wouldn't have access to the kind of opportunities that we had as kids that came from more Model C, and kids from even more affluent backgrounds. In fact, debating as a sport was an extremely elite sport. And we thought it was wrong, especially considering the amount of personal benefits that it comes with and the kind of competencies that it can really, really hone in the life of a child. And we started Tsimung to really bridge the gap between those who were enjoying debating from a point of privilege to those who never even had access to the sport in the first instance. So our thing was to scale our own experiences. We wanted to scale our experiences and make sure as many young Black people as possible could experience what we are experiencing. And that's why we formed Tsimung. And the name itself actually came from my dad. It's plowing ground in Setswana, Sesotho, right, Tsimung. But we're saying is that we are a plowing ground that grows citizens, right? Our slogan is growing citizens. Because again, if we think about the youth crisis on the African continent. At the root of the youth crisis is the inability of young people to see themselves as active participants in the development of our country, or in any country on this continent. And so we found that debating by nature, because you're constantly talking about real issues that affect real people in society, you're constantly problem solving with one another in specific simulated moments. You have a greater opportunity to have citizenship as a skill and competency that's honed from within you. You are an active citizen if you belong to Orange Farm, and the people in the Orange Farm community have a better existence because of you.
Welcome back to the show. It is only when we own our narratives that we become empowered. And that person that knows the importance of the power of the human voice is Tsimung, who runs a social enterprise called Tsimung. He uses this platform to teach the young people about owning the power of their own voices. Let's go straight into that story.
We started Tsimung in 2016, officially, right? So we did work probably from about 2015. But officially started in 2016 with three founders, me, Busim Kumbuzipo, and Bongani Masilela. And we've been running it ever since. So that's what, 5-6 years? Yeah.
How do you turn what essentially is a social enterprise that uses debating as a vehicle for change into a full-fledged business? Tami explains how.
So basically what we do is that we approach organizations, companies, CSI funds, right, that have a specific mandate towards youth development and education. Right? So firstly, so people must understand that there are financial resources that are available to continuously develop young people through education and skills development. So we approach those very organizations whose mandate is that, right? And then we present debating as a unique solution as a unique skills development solution for young people, right? But what we lead with is the teaching of critical 21st century competencies, not debating. Debating is a vehicle, right? Debating it could be anything. Debating is great because it can teach all five at the same time. It encapsulates all of them, right? But what's really, really important, what's missing truly in the education system is teaching and assessing critical competencies. And that's precisely the innovation that we had come up with in Tsimung, right? So, we'd work with a number of trusts, with a number of NGOs that would bring us into communities where they are already doing impact work, right? So like the client I'm working with right now, where we are in Orange Farm, already has a community center. They're working with young people on a number of various career development programs, work readiness programs, right? And so critical competencies is a huge part of their specific mandate. But we present debating as a solution towards teaching and assessing those very critical competencies, which is something that we can differentiate from any other party because no one can assess them and no one can claim to teach them like we do. We don't only work in Orange Farm, so we work in a number of township communities in South Africa. We also work in rural communities as well. Why generally it would be important for us to work in these kind of communities is because of the inherent lack of access that these communities have, right? We can speak many moons about the legacy of apartheid and the unfair distribution of resources and information, right? But of course, where those problems really persist, problems such as unemployment, gender-based violence, substance abuse, all of these problems that plague our African communities, these problems truly persist in township, rural, and urban communities, more than they do in the suburban areas. The things that I'm talking about here in Orange Farm, the problems that we're identifying on the whiteboard through these kids are not problems that are being faced in Bryanston, for example. Shout out to the people in Bryanston, right? But why it's important then is to truly bridge the gap between the two communities. If I were to take you back to my foremost value and passion is bridging inequality. That's just my foremost passion.
Debating, as Tami mentioned, is a vehicle for teaching 21st century critical competencies, and he unpacks some of the important competencies and skills he imparts to young people.
The first is critical thinking, right? So this is your ability to make a sound judgment. That's that. It's really an active distilling process in the mind. What I say to my students is that it's almost like we're creating a new infrastructure in your brain, right? We're creating new architecture in your brain, right? Because you think differently about everything and nothing is safe, right? So for example, there are communities in South Africa where there's not been electricity for 3 years, right? In most communities in South Africa, township communities, there are rolling blackouts, load reduction, all those kinds of things. What do you think about that issue for yourself? And we juxtapose your own biases with facts. What are the actual facts? What's the science, right? We juxtapose those two things with what people who oppose your views are saying. All of that whole process contributes to you getting to a point where you finally make a sound judgment. So that's one, critical thinking. The second thing is argumentation, and I think it flows very nicely from critical thinking. Now, I need to be taught how to deliver an argument. Actually start with a statement, make a claim, and complete that claim by giving reasons that back that claim. That is for a situation where you need to mobilize people around a specific idea that you might have, right? Because at the end of the day, we are all, as individuals, we are all susceptible to influence, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? We are all susceptible to influence. People teach and people are taught. Do you see what I'm saying? And we giving people the ability to not only think about issues and make sound judgments, but deliver argumentation that convinces people about that judgment. Another thing I'll just hold on to for now is speaking, right? So if I'm talking about making a specific argument, it is also worth it to make a convincing or speak convincingly or persuasively, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're going to mobilize me around your views, you have to persuade me, right? So this is where public speaking comes in, right? And then we move on to creative problem solving, where we simulate you in a specific moment in discourse, in a moment in societal conversation, and we allow you to solve for a specific problem. See what I'm saying? And the debate itself becomes then a contestation between two teams. Which solution is the superior solution in solving this specific problem that we're all having in society?
We got to see Tami in action as he teaches some of these critical skills to young people in Orange Farm. And this is what some of them had to say about how Tsimung speaks to their reality and what they have learned.
Orange Farm, societal problems, drugs, substance abuse, alcohol, gangsterism, and those social problems. And just Orange Farm as a place, the lack of opportunities, the lack of employment, that it's okay to see someone who has no job sitting in a corner everywhere. There's nothing wrong about it, it's the norm. So those are the challenges that Orange Farm has faced. And as a young person, it demotivates me every time I see, as I walk to here, to do something. A guy older than me is just sitting on a corner asking himself, where am I going to get an opportunity to make bread? Where am I going to get an opportunity to get food for tonight? It hurts a lot.
Living here in Orange Farm as a young woman, we have troubles of teenage pregnancy, and people don't go to varsity. For example, I'm not at varsity currently. And then Tami told me that I should go to varsity next year. And it's not only about the degree that I'm doing, but it's also about socializing, networking, meeting new people, getting opportunities. So he's really told me that. And if it wasn't full time, I wouldn't know that. And I might be considering going to varsity next year. So we'll see.
On the first day, he did say that Tsimung will help us be upstanding citizens of the country. So I'll say the one thing that it has helped me with is being a voice for the helpless and the voice for the voiceless, and being proud and confident when I talk. One of the challenges that I experienced before I was here is I love to argue a lot. And my thing that Tsimung has helped me with is structuring my arguments so that they're clear and they're understandable, rather than just going, oh, you're wrong, but saying you are wrong because of this. Here's my example, this. Yeah. So that mindset has changed completely from just talking to actually knowing when you talk, this is what you want to say and this is how you say it to others. One thing that Tammy has taught me is that, and it's weird, but not all men are trash. Because as much as he was sincere, as much as he was kind, on the first day, he did state very clear that I am here for this, and this is what I want out of you guys. And in a way that I also felt safe, and I also felt, okay, this is someone that I'll enjoy his lessons more. So yeah, that's what I learned from Tam, that teaching isn't boring. Teaching can be fun, yeah.
Welcome back. We are almost at the end of our show. Remember, if you missed any of our show, you can find us on YouTube at Stories Untold. And if you just joined us, do not despair. We will definitely have this story on YouTube as well. And if you want to take things a bit further, you can tag us on social media using the hashtag Stories Untold SABC for all those good deeds. And that person that understands the power of doing a good deed in a community is Tammy Bowe, who runs a social enterprise called Tsimung. He teaches young people critical thinking to harness their leadership skills. Let's go straight into it.
My name is Powe. I am a director at Tsimung and Tammy's wife. I would describe Tammy as an incredibly authentic person. Ever since I've known him, I think in 2015, he's just been super vulnerable, super himself, and super compelled by this bigger kind of calling to change people's lives. And he used to say this all the time to me. He'd say, the person who gives more has a lot more stake in leadership. And I think it was just a driving element for him in his life and a driving narrative. I've learned so much from Tammy, that you pour in from your heart, and that you take this work as the most crucial work in that person's life. You pretend no one else is going to help them. If you don't do this properly, then that's it for them. And that really just makes the work so much more meaningful for us.
Tammy is a servant leader who was voted into the SRC at WITS for 2 terms. He also participated on One Day Leader on SABC, which he credits for igniting the idea of Tsimung. Tammy highlights more of his accomplishments.
My proudest achievement is actually starting Tsimung and growing it into a company that has worked with over 4,000 students over the past couple of years. That was recognized across many platforms. Our CEO, for example, was recognized on Forbes Africa 30 Under 30 through the work that we did in Tsimung. We did work with big organizations like the Nelson Mandela Foundation. We worked with the National Basketball Players Association, the NBA, where they brought kids from Chicago, and we did work with them here in South Africa. So really, I don't know, I don't really want to speak about accolades and all those kinds of things. I think my biggest pride and prize is the true impact that we translated into these kids' lives. My big vision is creating a society and contributing to a society of critically engaged, capacitated, and empowered citizens.
Tsimung is indeed a work of art, and it is innovation at its best. Although Tammy has managed to turn this into a business, it hasn't been easy to convince the market, and these were some of the challenges that he experienced.
It's not very easy to justify a program like this, right? Someone just wants to say, okay, cool, I want to tick a couple of boxes. How does this make me look good as a company? Teaching critical competencies doesn't always align with people that truly have a mandate to spend money on good work, right? So finding the right partnerships is a very big challenge, but I thank God, because right now we're blessed. We're in a place where the partners that we're working with are aligned. Right? So over the years, it's been very difficult to truly find people that get this work at an educational and a capacity level as well. But 2, one of the biggest challenges that we faced recently was COVID. And it did 2 things. the shock meant that programs like ours would be under-prioritized, right? And of course, it's understandable, right? There's a pandemic, it's like being in the middle of a war, right? But again, it meant that organizations like ours who do work for work readiness, they are future thinking. COVID Pella was a moment in our history that highlighted what the world is going to look like in about 10 to 15 years, right? And so the emphasis on critical competencies in the very beginning of COVID wasn't there. It was the panic around solving the problem. But the benefit then became, okay, cool. Now that we've seen what the future is going to look like, what needs to be taught? What do we need to spend our money on to prepare people, best prepare people for the future? And I think this is now where where our value is truly coming to the fore. But yeah, it was very difficult in the beginning, right? You lose cash flow, you lose clients, you lose sponsors for specific programs. You have to reevaluate the whole thing. You have to totally pivot your model for it to be relevant for this kind of economy. And that in and of itself is horrid. But once you've gone through the hump, once you've gone through the fire, you have something way more refined. Between one another is, how's your impact stronger for this community? How is it bettering the place that we're in? We always talk about these elusive concepts like Ubuntu. We make them tangible now, right? We make these big concepts more tangible. We actually give people skills, capacity, and again, a mental infrastructure and an attitudinal shift to get them to truly, truly hone their own skills and activate their agency for something positive. If history would say something about my work, what would history say? The African continent is building the best possible people for the world. The world is better because of the African continent, but not because of the geographic space, because of the very people that exist on that continent, because of the skills that they hone, because of their attitude, because of their values, because of Botu Babona.
Thami Powe's initiative has definitely given young people an opportunity as well as a voice to tackle issues in their communities. It's important as young people that we lead our own. With that, we end our show here for today, and we also wrap the month of June, which is Youth Month here in South Africa. Thank you so much, Africa, for watching. From myself, Pule Mulubatsi, and the rest of the team, goodbye.